Yeah, good to see so many people in. I think we got around, almost 80 people already in, and we're just about to start. It's 4 o'clock here in Stockholm. So what do you say, Patrick? Should we get started with an introduction?
Yes, I think so. So welcome, guys, to this webinar that's part of the Agile20Reflect Festival. And today, Mia Kolmodin is about to have a webinar about the product ownership role. So, yeah.
Or process, as we said previously.
Take it away, Mia.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm happy to see so many people here, and we will do this webinar and presentation, and you guys will also get the link. So if you can't join the full presentation, you will also get the video that we will publish on YouTube. So Patrick will help with that and get in contact with you. So we are recording this, as you can see. And if you have any questions during the webinar, you can post them in the Q&A, and Patrick might help to facilitate that. It might be that it's a good question to ask during the webinar, and then you might pop it for me to see if I can answer it. Or otherwise, we'll try to save them for the end. So I hope you can stay to the end. So let's get started with this, if I can get it to work. And as you can see, the poster that we have created to visualize the process, the product ownership process, and what's going on in this process, and why we do the work that we do with product ownership. So these are the things that we will dive into and see some real examples as well, and also look into how maybe the product ownership organization may look. So first of all, why do we need a product owner? And maybe you guys who are out there already know this answer. Maybe you are product owners, or maybe you are working together with people who are product owners and see the value of product owners. I myself started to work as a product owner about, 15 years ago, maybe, and then a chief product owner. And I think it's one of the most difficult roles that we have. When we work at least in Scrum, working together with stakeholders and teams, and having customer focus, and maybe not really having mandate to say no to stuff, but also having the focus to work with the team and collaborate and innovate. So it might be a difficult situation sometimes in some organizations, but also maybe one of the most fun roles that I've had, at least. So number one, we need to have customer focus, and in many organizations, you don't really get customer focus because you try to maybe cover all the different needs and requests that you have. So a lot of products that are developed don't really get used in all the features and everything. So around 20% are the things that people and customers use in the products, and the product owner should then prioritize only those things, and maybe the things that might be useful sometimes. And how do you do this? Of course, you need to have a great process and a great way to get quick feedback. And this is also something that the product owner should work with. And to, of course, minimize the time for decisions so that we can make quick decisions based on the knowledge that we have in our teams and the people working with the product. So this is also something that the product owner should be able to help with. And that's part of the purpose with the role, to make it quick and easy to make good decisions together with the team and have the mandate to do that. And create a shared understanding, so communicating around the vision, why we're doing the product or service we're doing, why we're making the decisions that we're doing, and help people to facilitate that understanding of why these things might be important, and who are the customers and what are their needs, and help people to do that in different ways. So we will also look into maybe some methods that can help you to do this. And of course, in many organizations, we have lack of focus. And this is something that, I don't know, you might see it in an Agile organization as well. But in your team, having focus in your team, that's the main job for the product owner, to prioritize and enable people to collaborate on what's most important right now, to swarm around those priorities. So removing this problem with lack of focus. So more about the product owner role. should be part of the Scrum team. And I know that a product owner, of course, could have more than one team also. But having the product owner sitting somewhere else in the organization, only showing up sometimes, might be difficult. So looking at it as part of the team, and if you work in Scrum, it's part of the Scrum team then. And this is in my mind at least, where the product owner belongs. You could talk about product management as well, which is managing the product. And of course, the product owner should be doing that product management work. And when we work in Scrum, we have three clear roles. We have the product owner, who is responsible for maximizing the value from the team, from the work that the team is doing, helping to prioritize, and also from the organization. And the Scrum Master, which is also one of the roles, responsibility is to maximizing the flow from the team. So enable them to deliver as quickly as possible to get quick feedback as well. So we have two different roles here, which need to be usually in the team, so that we have those two roles on different people, which is usually important, so that we get kind of a power balance in between these two, helping the team to work in the best way possible within these two areas. And then the team, who are responsible for the solution. So how is this supposed to work? What's the best way possible to build this, to create a solution for the customer to reach the goal that the product owner has set and prioritized? So the focus of the product owner, this is also part of the poster, understanding and articulating why we're doing what we're doing, together, of course, with stakeholders and in connection with the business goals, and maybe pulling it down to the product and defining that. So what's the opportunity continuously, and how do we know if we're successful with our product? What are the KPIs that might help us to realize if we're doing a good job or not? And understanding and continuously working with this and helping the team and the organization and maybe the teams around you to understand this. And then what that the product owner need to work together with the team to understand continuously. So who are the users? And then, of course, prioritizing the right users and maybe the right needs in the right time. What are their pains and gains? And working together with the team to doing this and involving them in the process usually helps the team to get much better understanding of the customer and create better quality, and also utilizing the brain power in the team. So of course it's important then that the team have the right capabilities, that we have people with the skills to do this. So usually you need to pull people from maybe different parts of the organization to bring them into the team to be able to do this as well. And then defining and understanding, ideating around the different types of solutions, and maybe building prototypes and having learnings around this. And then how does this actually work? This is always up to the team members to understand and to come up with these ideas together, and not for the product owner to define, or for anyone else in the organization to define what the solution is. They might come in to help to understand and identify the pains or the goals, but not the how, the actual solution. This is the job of the team by themselves to do. And of course, working together with the product owners to understand, is this really what we have prioritized? Are we doing the right things? And connecting it to the goals and the KPIs. So the product owner is part of the process and the team are part of the process. And you might invite, of course, customers and stakeholders to collaborate on these different things. But then keeping this as the product development process within the team also helps the team to minimize handoffs, which then, of course, also enables innovation and decrease the time spent on maybe waiting on different things, and also work that maybe isn't really needed. So you can keep the process lightweight as possible. So you can do this build, measure, learn process, which is beautiful. I don't know if you guys have been part of those kind of teams, but it's usually a lot of fun when you can build something, create something, release it quite quickly, and then get feedback from the customers. So leading the product development process. This is a generic process where you define the problem, you find solutions, and you build solutions. And of course, then you optimize solutions as well. And working in this process together with the stakeholders and the teams and the customers. So setting the goals, understanding the customer and the context and problems, of course, and prioritizing which problems to work on first to solve, and maybe what you consider to be a successful solution. How do we help the customer or solve the problem and understand that this is actually working? And then finding solutions, ideating, validating together with the team, and testing with real customers, and prioritizing. So what are the things that are good enough for now, or what are the things that will help us maybe be successful also in the future, to work together with the team to prioritize and understand what's useful, what's sellable, and what's feasible. These are the things that together bring value, and the product owner comes in with usually what's sellable, so what will help the customer to feel successful. And then slicing horizontally, setting sprint and release goals. So slicing horizontally, I know that's sometimes difficult to understand what that means, but that if you think about the customer journey and the process that the customer has traveling through your service or your product using it, slicing in thin slices, helping the customer to actually walk through and use the service and the product, and not just focusing on different features, but actually user scenarios. So slicing them as thin as possible, setting a user goal. This is what we want the customer to be able to do in our releases. These are usually things that product owners are doing in the product development process and helping to facilitate this along the way together with the team. And Patrick, you can let me know if there are any questions that you want me to take along the way. So, as we concluded previously, the product owner is responsible for optimizing the value, slicing the scope to help the team to always deliver value. So in the most perfect world, the team can deliver something valuable each sprint, usually if you work in Scrum. So if you can plan only 2-week sprints and continuously release value, that's amazing. Sometimes, of course, you have to release something to get feedback, and that's maybe not really something that you will make money of. But usually it helps you along the way to reach that big goal at the end. And the difference here between maybe waterfall thinking is that the scope isn't set. We will cut the scope to be able to release something that works and something that meets our goals and help us to move along as a team and with our product. So we always keep the time frame, and we set the quality to what's important for us. And that's usually something also that the product owner needs to prioritize together with the people in the team. And then, as we said, finding value as a team. So helping to do this together with the team, which means, of course, you need to facilitate the process. You need to be good at facilitation. You need to help people to engage and understand and work together and collaborate in the best way possible. And sometimes doing that in different ways, depending on where you are with your product or service. Where are you in the process? Where are you in the maturity of the product? And working with different planning cadences. A lot of times we need to look ahead. We need to look in the future to see the vision of the product, where we're going, what problems are we solving, what other opportunities. But then we also handle the sprint planning and having a roadmap for maybe small goals that will happen along the way. And then having the day-to-day business together with the team. So you work on different levels a lot of times as a product owner. And then keeping the backlog up to date. This is a responsibility for the product owner, but also then defining and doing it together with the team, the details just in time. So sometimes we look at the backlog as just a list of stuff that's going to happen in the future. That's the very maybe minimized way of looking at it. But a lot of times you have bigger stuff that you know is coming in, which are maybe just goals or opportunities. And once you move into actually prioritizing it and bring it into the team and having people to focus on it and swarm around it, then you create the details and you understand more and slice and make it smaller so that you actually can deliver something. So working on what's most prioritized right now, but also having a view in the future also here. And as we said, leading part of this process. So not just working on prioritizing the backlog and maybe working by yourself to doing a lot of things, but leading this process together with the team and making it obvious how is this process working and how are we improving the process and helping people to engage and know where we're at, and doing this in a good way so we actually engage the right people in the process and not having handovers. Keeping backlog up to date, transparent, and prioritized, and finding ways of doing it. I will show some methods how you can do this, which are some of the methods that really helped me a lot becoming a product owner. So this is a job that's really important for everyone, of course, to see what's actually going to come in the future. And it could be very difficult to manage to do this, maybe especially now when we are sitting distributed and not working in a physical space. How do you manage to do this? So hopefully we can find some good ways of doing that. And then enabling a pull-based backlog for the team so that they can see what's actually valuable and pull things from the backlog to see these are the things that we as a team think will be needed to reach the goal. This is also something that the product owner need to help the team to be able to do. So instead of pushing things to the team, helping them to actually pull what they find most valuable to reach the goals that I as a product owner has set for the team and for the sprint. Yes?
Regarding value here from Eric. So
yeah.
Thank you for this useful seminar. I was wondering about the following. The definition of value differs from person to person. Are there common uses for defining value which you can recommend?
Yeah, what's valuable for the customer? So no, there's no, what I know of at least, common value measurement, but what will be used by the customers, what will make them love your product is usually what you're looking for. And so you need to define your customer and what they find valuable, what pains you're solving for the customer. You need to understand maybe how you can make money of this, because usually that's what we want to do, or maybe we're doing something else. What's the reason for our being as an organization? To understand that, and is it actually feasible? Can we build this? Is it going to work in the way that we want it to do? So these perspectives usually have to come in, and that's why it's a little bit complex to define one valuable thing. But if you understand the purpose of your organization and what you want to achieve, and also then you deliver something that the customers will love, then you know that you have something that's valuable.
Thanks, Mia, and I hope you're happy with that, Eric.
Yeah, I hope so. And working in Scrum, so working together as a team and working with the stakeholders and finding smaller chunks of work that you can do in maybe 1 or 2 or 3 week sprints to get as quick feedback as possible. And you can work in Scrum not just building stuff, but also understanding what to do. So use Scrum and add the product development process on top of it, so that you also do discovery work and delivery work, sometimes in the same sprint, but sometimes also first understanding maybe the business and the customer, and then defining the solution, and then building and delivering it. Sometimes you can do that over 5 or 6 sprints, and then optimizing it. And then you see that maybe you come up with some new value stream for your product, where you find new customers. So you can usually just in smaller chunks prioritize and work together as a team to work through the process and then deliver something that's amazing, which is usually a little bit difficult if you don't have these smaller boxes where you can plan things in. So this, I find this to be a very valuable way for many teams to be able to collaborate and deliver value continuously. And also adding on, bringing different types of people in, having this as a support for you to collaborate in the best way possible. I'm not going to go into the actual process, how it works. So ways of working for a product owner. Of course, delivering continuously. So not making all the decisions in the beginning, but making them continuously. This is what makes it a little bit tricky if you're not collaborating with other competencies and roles within the organization. So you need to be able to collaborate with those that you have to make decisions together with, and the team, of course, to make these decisions continuously and deliver value continuously, and understand that once you do that, you will minimize the risk, and you know that you can reach your goal usually a lot quicker than you do otherwise if you would plan everything up front and then try to deliver something in a big bang. And finding a way to define your roadmap. So where are we going, and handle and manage expectations from your stakeholders. So this is usually also something that you have to do as a product owner, and working in the product ownership process, understanding where are we heading with this, and maybe working with hypotheses and not defining solutions here. And then continuously work with these smaller chunks of work, usually to deliver something. And you can look at it as a map. This is a map of Sweden and some of Denmark also. So the roadmap might be something like a map. You need to go somewhere. We're going to Båstad, it looks here. It's a lovely place in the summer. And we might have different ways, different routes of getting there. And we don't want to plan the whole way up front. We don't want to make all these decisions up front. We want to be able to make them as we move along during this process of getting towards this beautiful place. So not having a detailed plan, but actually having different routes that we can take depending on what happens along the way and what we might decide along the way. So we might see that there's a cloud coming up. We might want to stop, or Patrick might want to go to the restroom, or he might know a really nice friend along the way where we can stay and have a nice fika. So making decisions along the way, this is what we need to be able to help the team and the organization to do. So that's how we want to use the roadmap. And communicating the vision in a good way. So you can have a vision statement around your product. You can define who are our key customers, the problems we want to solve, what's the opportunities, helping the teams to understand this, and our stakeholders, of course, communicating and working together with them around the vision. It really helps them to come with their ideas and to utilize the brain power in the organization and in the teams if we do this. If we don't have a vision, it's also very difficult to prioritize for the product owner. So if you don't have a vision and you're supposed to work with product ownership, product management, and you're just maybe delivering what you think is important, but you don't have an alignment on the vision, you might find it a little bit tricky. So this usually helps, even though it could be a little bit fluffy, and that's fine. But what are the key metrics that we have, and where are we going with this? What's the different from other things that maybe others are doing? So defining this in a good way.
We have some questions I think we can take, because we have from Cindy and two from Edwin. So Cindy, if a client has overlapping product owner roles, how do you do your job as a PO without making them feel intruded?
Oh, that's a difficult one to understand, and I'm sad I can't hear more details around this question. Overlapping product owner roles. Not sure if that's a hierarchy of product owners, or if it's that you are maybe working on the same areas within your product or something. But a lot of times a product owner needs to be good to collaborate with other product owners or people, stakeholders in the organization. So visualizing what you're doing and communicating these things, and also maybe then collaborating and visualizing what you as product owners are doing. Could also be that you need to define what am I responsible for, and what are you responsible for, which is more of a maybe role mapping, which could be good to do.
And having it transparent so they can understand each other.
Yeah, a lot of times those maybe misunderstandings or whatever problems we might have that cause conflicts will help. You will help to minimize those if you are transparent. Maybe then you understand that we have different ideas of who is doing what or responsible for what. And then it's easier to solve those conflicts.
We have more from Cindy. What are some common issues POs face and how to remediate them?
Oh, you guys probably have a lot of those. But sometimes if you don't have mandate to make decisions within your product with your team, you are in trouble. Then it's very difficult. And if you can't maybe meet with your customers on a regular basis, don't maybe really know who they are, then you also have problems, because you can't prioritize and you can't really understand if you are delivering something that's valuable for the customers. So being too far away from the customer is usually a problem. And also maybe conflicts. A lot of times product owners needs to be working as change agents as well. So you need to be able to maybe improve things in your budgeting process, which is usually a problem as well. You need to be able to improve collaborations and maybe aligning plans with other departments. So there's a lot of change work that usually needs to happen. So maybe practicing on your skills when it comes to those things, and maybe like me and maybe someone else have done, becoming an agile coach instead, doing both.
Then we have two from Edwin. Hi, Mia. The PO should have the opportunity to take the ROI in consideration as a business case decision on cost and revenues for a sprint goal. I have seen many POs in enterprises that did not have a clue on the cost per sprint. What would your advice be for those POs?
The cost per sprint, well, if you could take responsibility for your budget for the project or product that you're working on, that's amazing. A lot of times that doesn't really happen. But if you could, that's really, really good. And then you should be responsible for the budget for the product. And you have a different budget for your team. So that's separated. And the cost usually is the team cost, or maybe the facilities and other things that you do. So the run cost is usually separated from the product. But you should be responsible for the product, but working together maybe with a development manager who is responsible for the people. So working together and seeing you have two budgets. How do we make this work in the best way possible, and taking responsibility together and make it transparent, and then prioritizing based on cost of delay or something. So what's most important now and why?
And his second one, often the PO is not a real PO, but more team backlog owner or something like that. What would your advice be to those kind of team backlog owners?
Yeah, then you're an administrator or a proxy PO. So if you could start maybe inviting people and seeing if you could take more responsibility and inviting them to your process and taking ownership of the process, but it could be difficult. So being a proxy PO, then you're usually administrating a lot of things and trying to figure out what people actually want. But if you start to invite those people to create a shared vision and do these things, then maybe you could also become a product ownership pair together with someone else that you get mandate together with. So I think we should continue, Patrick, and save the questions for later. So owning this product owner, product strategy and life cycle for a product. If you do that, you can also make decisions on where to scale up, or where maybe to close down, and maybe to shut down the product totally, and also maybe coming up with, so working with kind of lean startup, understanding now the product is actually declining. We're getting laggards into our product. So people who are late into this wants to come in and join our product, and they have different needs in the product. So these types of users, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards, they all have different needs in the product, and they want to be able to use the product in different ways. So you also need to satisfy totally different type of customers here, even though you might think of them as the same customers, they are not. And once you see that you're coming to maturity, then usually you need to find the next product. And this could be your team doing it if you understand your customers and look for what are the new things that our customers are actually starting to looking for, and could we accommodate those needs as an organization and as a team. So you could take responsibility for this whole life cycle, or you could work with another team who actually starts to do that. But as an organization, it's very important to have those new products coming continuously. And then cost of delay, using that for prioritization to finding what's valuable and what's urgent. Those are things that you really, really want to prioritize. So you could use different types of models to do that. And usually it's important not to just do what you thought would be needed, or maybe what people are screaming the most about, and also maybe making it a little bit smaller. Once you make it smaller, it's also usually easier to deliver it. So finding those things that can become small and also needs to be done right now, and also defining what would it cost if we don't do this right now. So that usually helps you to find, is this valuable? Is this going to give us ROI like we talked about previously? Or is this just something that someone is in the organization or some customer talked about, but it's not really going to bring us the value that we're looking for? So this might help you to do this. And then working with storytelling. And this is something that's really close to my heart. So giving context to what we're doing using storytelling in different ways. So of course, customer journeys is a way of giving context and maybe telling a story about the customer, and doing this together with the team so that they also understand the context that we're in. And usually then you don't need to do a lot of big discovery projects. You do this continuously with your team to understand the context of your users. And of course, you could do many different things, and working with UX practices to do this as a product owner. So collaborating doing this in a good way really helps the team to understand why we're doing this, and maybe helps you to build the right solutions, but also not building stuff that people don't need. So connecting to the beginning, building those 20%. This really helps you do that in a better way. Defining the details just in time. We talked about this. So this has to be done continuously, and finding ways of doing that, and building it so it's a smooth process that helps you to not focus on things that are not important right now. So in many project-based organizations, you try to find people to join in and defining what's the next opportunity. So this means that you pull people from the teams to work on things that are not prioritized yet. And instead, you want to keep those people working on what is actually prioritized right now, and defining those details and delivering those things and getting feedback. So getting this feedback loop working in a more smooth way, and not focusing on what's going to come later right now. So this kind of thinking and visualization might help you. So it's later, then don't work so much on it. Just maybe define the opportunity in a light way, impact goal, and maybe possible opportunities for us as a company and for the user. That might be enough to help you to prioritize. So some real examples. This is a lightweight way of visualizing, creating a shared understanding with people, and interviewing people in the organization. So just mapping all the different processes that are in connection to the customer where you deliver value, and finding out where are the pains that we have. So this might mean that you have a customer journey, and you might have different types of roles in the organization that helps the service in different ways. And you also might map up the different systems that you have in connection to actually doing this, creating this holistic perspective of the service and the product that you're working with. And many times it might be different teams working on these things. So you might want to do this together with all the different teams, interviewing and creating a visualization to create the context, define the pains, and to work together with your team and also with other teams as an organization. So I've seen many times where you define one process is good, but if you can see how that process actually connects to other processes, it helps you a lot better. And this is a real example. And what you see here, I think it's one of those moments where we have the ugly truth. You can see a lot of pains at the end, which is actually people dying from a system used previously, at least, I hope not still, in the Swedish healthcare, where we have problems in the beginning where you don't get the medicine or medication list from the local healthcare with you when you go into emergency, and that might cause you getting the wrong medicine and you might be unconscious. So those big red things at the end, some of them at least I know, are people dying from this. So aligning then maybe a lot of different stakeholders around what's most important right now. If you have responsibility for different systems here, you might not want to prioritize this, that people are dying. You want to prioritize what's most important for my system because that's my role. Instead, we want to have a product ownership over this full process and helping teams to work on what's most crucial right now to solve this problem over here. So this might be a way that product ownership, the process, and also those roles might help you to deliver what's most valuable for the customer and also you as an organization. Maybe creating project hypothesis. A lot of times we don't know what we're supposed to do or what the solution is supposed to be, and this is a little bit painful sometimes, but you can use just a hypothesis formula like here. We believe that, we create, and we know we're on the right path when. This might really help you in the beginning to work like this. And of course, you can create it together with people so that you might have different ideas and you could align in a better way doing this together with your stakeholders and with your team, of course. You can create trees of hypotheses. Maybe you see that this is when we will get the big value, but we start over here. We have different hypotheses. This is a way of creating a roadmap, which will lead you towards, oh, this is where we actually see we get those big values from doing these different things. So connecting these hypotheses and then, of course, finding if we learn something, we create a new hypothesis and we add that in and we take that road instead. Shared view of who is the user, creating maybe these type of ugly looking personas. So it doesn't have to be a fancy agency doing them for you. You and your team can do it just to align on who are the users, what are their real pains, and what context are they going to do this stuff in, and how do we know that we succeed helping them. So doing this with your team in maybe lightweight setup, maybe using some template or something, really helps you as a product owner and the team to prioritize and know that you're doing the right thing. Ideate together. So solving these big red problems a lot of times, or finding new opportunities together and ideating. So facilitating these sessions together with people. So it could be people in your team. I love a method called Design Studio, where you do a design thinking process in 1 hour usually. So adding then that into the sprint planning, or whenever we find something more complex, a problem that we want to get different views on. We want to invite people, we want to collaborate and finding a new solution to a real problem. That's really good method to do that, to use Design Studio, where we get different ideas, different perspectives as quickly as possible, and we build on the ideas of others, and we actually visualize how this will help the customer to solve that problem. User story mapping. This is one way to plan where we are when we are in complexity. So looking at the customer journey, which are the different things that the customer will be doing, and create a flexible and also, as you can see, a very transparent plan. So this is the backlog. This could be the backlog for one team. It could also be the backlog for many teams, where you pull up things based on the sprint goal or the release goal. So depending on what I, as a product owner or chief product owner or product manager, define as our release goal, the team or the teams can pull up things from the backlog and then say, these are things that together will take the customer through the process and solve some real problems. And they can continuously deliver these things. So this is a super good method from Jeff Patton. Maybe you have used it. You can see me sitting on the floor there with a big plan for the Swedish Opera. It's many years ago. I think it was my first biggest user story map that I did, but since then I've done it many times. And the other one you can see, really ugly one, was with a team at a Swedish media agency, where we invited the development team from Poland to work together with the people working in Stockholm to plan for a week what we were going to work on. And this was the plan. And of course, we looked at personas, we looked at the different problems and contexts of the users as well, and then together made this plan. So once we have this plan together, it's also easier for the team to understand and pull stuff from this, which is usually a really good investment to do. So a transparent backlog, as you can see, you can read the book. The book has a couple of years now already. So, but I think it's still valuable. And I think this is a super good method for product owners to take ownership over the planning and work together with the team. But of course, you need to have an understanding also around the problem and the context to be able to do this. So you need to do some research around it first. I have a case from a bank in Sweden called Nordea, a Nordic bank, where we were piloting the change of the core bank platform using 8 teams, Scrum teams, as it says here. And we were creating project hypothesis and doing user mapping. We did personas and stuff like that too. So we had a slicing strategy. A lot of times you need to do that a little bit upfront to be able to prioritize. So we're going to work with the Finnish market, household users, existing customers, unsecured loans. Now I can't really see what it says down here, but mobile platform, I think. And then continuously we prioritize different scenarios. And these methods that I just showed you helped us to do this. So this might look super easy to do, but of course you need to make some big business decisions, and you need to have the mandate to do this. So the chief product owner over this, these 8 teams needed to have the mandate to make these decisions, and then all the teams needed to be able to collaborate to deliver this in a good way. So we created persona, proto-personas, as it's called. So prototypes, which helps us then continuously understand if we are having the right assumptions of our customers, our users. But this means that instead of talking about different types of users using things all the time and having confusion around, is this the right thing to do or not? Actually defining, so we have 3 different personas, and it's only Henry that is important right now. All different types of needs depend or connecting to Simon or this Sarah, we're going to do later. Right now, we might not know when, but it's just Henry. This helps the teams to slice and create smaller pieces of value that they can deliver continuously. Helps us talk about the same thing and having structured conversations, which I think a lot of times is what the product ownership process should help us to do, having structured conversations and finding out what's most valuable and getting people's insights into it. This is an example of a user story map, which we used as well. We used it, of course, then 1 user story map, 1 backlog for 8 teams. And as you can see, you pull a line and you pull things above the line that you find maybe most valuable right now, and then pull down things, making a first draft of a plan. And then you can set your release goals and prioritize, and then create the sprint planning on top of it, where you pull up things continuously. So you keep the same plan and nothing get lost, because what you have underneath the line is still going to stay there. And if you slice something and make it smaller, because maybe you define that we're just going to use maybe 1 payment method instead of all of them. We define maybe Visa, not PayPal, not Swish, or what we have in Sweden and other countries, different ways of paying. We might say we only want to use Visa. So we pull that up and keep that in our planned sprint or release, but the rest of those options are still down there. And we make it super clear why we do that, because this persona wants to do this. This is how we satisfy this type of customer. So agile product planning, this is what it's all about. Keeping options open and creating a first something that we can use and try and see and give feedback, and people can test it. And we could also mitigate the biggest risks that we might see. It could be usability, it could be technical, it could be connections, of course, to other databases or whatever, getting the right data in or something. So that's the first maybe draft, and then building on. And a lot of times, end game might be much quicker than we thought it would be. So we a lot of times have a lot of stories underneath that we don't need to build at all, because we already reached our goal with this product or service, or this step of it at least, and then can move on. So this is an example of how we define the opening game, the walking skeleton scope. So visualizing for everyone what we were doing. And in this case, it was just configuring this off-the-shelf product and see if we could get the right data in. So we had no interface or nothing at all. This was the purpose, just to make sure that those things were working, and if this off-the-shelf product could actually help us solve our business problem. And then the mid game, in this case, contact center by phone, pilot scope 1.0, where this person who works within the bank can borrow, I think it was like 100 kronor or something, and calling into contact centers. So no interface for the user, only for people in contact center. And they had to do some steps manually, of course. So this minimized the risks and helps us to understand if the most crucial things actually are working. And then pilot scope that we could release to our customer and see that we actually could then remove maybe old systems where the customer can come in and use the phone to actually do their banking. So this was the end game for the pilot, to make sure, is this a product that we can use to replace our old systems in the bank? So these are just examples. And pictures a lot of times helps people to understand what are we doing, why are we doing it, how is it supposed to work? And then of course you have all the other stuff that you do as well. But just do enough to help them understand. And it doesn't need to be a pretty picture. It could be a picture of something that you all understand, to have some common understanding around. And a lot of times I've used digital collaboration tools for this user story mapping. And the one that I've used the most is called Stories on Board. And it's been very helpful because anyone that you want to invite can view things here. But I, as a product owner or chief product owner, together with my team or several teams, can continuously pull things up and down and build this journey across the product and keep it alive. So it's super transparent for anyone in the organization that you might want to show it to. And it helps also to mitigate if you have conflicts in between who is responsible for what, then we might maybe color code some things that belong to different teams or something, so we can actually, it helps us to collaborate, it helps us to see what we are doing, and it helps us to keep this planning going up and down and being dynamic. So we pull things up and we work on what's most prioritized. And I haven't really seen many other methods that helps you do that in a good way. And this, I know that this picture is as old, but from this product, it's been developed a lot, and you can probably find other types of products that will do the same for you now. But it's been working really good the past, I don't know, 10 years or something. So how do you scale this? I know time is running up. A lot of times in many organizations, we have chaos. And maybe not the good chaos. Good chaos is when you innovate and when you can time box it and when you can know that you can get out of it. But when you have too many teams, this is a picture that I borrowed from Henrik Kniberg's when he worked at Spotify, visualizing how it might work if you don't have a product organization that helps teams to collaborate and maybe align a little bit more. And maybe people are pushing things in, as you can see. This is the highest priority, always. So having teams of product owners might help where we collaborate. I've talked a little bit about that. And you might have a chief product owner, or you might have a product manager who's responsible over that business area, helps teams to collaborate and facilitates these sessions where you need to collaborate and have a shared vision and those kind of things. And also helps, of course, to maybe help new product owners to become more senior, and you can have a more career path within product management in your organization. So it might help to create this capability within the organization that a lot of times is actually missing. And of course, this also helps many teams to collaborate, to have both autonomy and alignment, and working together, several product owners, then we need to have alignment on a shared goal and a shared vision. But also then maybe having our goal for our team and our mission, maybe taking responsibility of a part of a product, or maybe having a product in an ecosystem where everything might be used by the same customer. So of course we have to find ways, good ways and methods that support us to do this. And at the product management scale, using this user story mapping technique, setting release, having teams taking ownership, and maybe working mostly within one area of that backlog, and maybe adding stuff into the backlog and adding things into parts where other teams need to help them. This could be your shared backlog then for many teams. Having autonomy and alignment, like we talked about, how can you manage to do that? A lot of times we know that teams have only 100% capacity, And if we push things on them that goes across the teams, we might look at it as company bets. We have different reasons for making this decision as an organization. This, of course, creates a lot of alignment, and it might decrease innovation. And instead, maybe we also want to have some team initiatives where we can take ownership as a team and with a clear mission of where we're going and why, where the project owner can take responsibility over a long period of time. And also we need to support other teams, helping collaboration and smooth delivery across the organization. And having teams also and product owners taking ownership over the maintenance. So taking ownership over the full process of understanding what to do and deliver it and continuously, of course, then improve. Because maintenance is going to happen continuously in an agile way of working. It's not a separate part of the job. So these are usually valuable buckets to think about as a product owner and with your budget for your product and together with your team. What are the things that we're actually doing? And maybe setting strategies together if we don't want to have too many big things coming from above in company bets. Instead, maybe working with clear missions. Where are we heading with this part of the product or this service so that we can work with the teams to understand what's going to happen. And as a product owner, I a lot of times need to work with other leaders and managers. So you can think of your part of it as a piece of a pie or a cake, where we have people working, being responsible for the people in the teams, development manager or line manager, and someone being responsible for helping, facilitating, and improving the process, just as a scrum master will do in the team. They might also join in your leadership team to help to facilitate and also improve how we collaborate as a leadership team. Or you might have an agile coach helping you with that. And the technology part. So a lot of times we need to have people being responsible for the big technology, maybe decisions or connection to the roadmap. It could be people working in our development teams that takes that part, but we also need to invite them in our management team then maybe to work on removing hinders for our teams to enable them to make as good as possible decisions continuously and being as successful as possible doing their job. So working as a leader in a leadership team, taking responsibility for the product decision and the product strategy as well. And if we can visualize this, I know this is a wet dream for many, having a visualized strategic area where we can work. So having the portfolio of the products and what we are working on together in the organization, and our ideas of the future, our hypothesis and the roadmaps, and the status on value. So we as product owners and product managers and people working with the product have responsibility for value. So visualizing how things are going with our customers and our products and our investments helps us also to make better decisions together. And then the flow part, so having flow in the organization and in our teams. So taking this shared responsibility and working together as one organization, taking responsibility together. So I think this was the end of it. And we're just on time. Patrick, we have a couple more minutes for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mia. I have some questions. Let's go over them. We have one from the chat here. One of our external stakeholders believes she is the product owner, while the team already has a product owner. How can we differentiate the role of business unit stakeholder, who is directly in touch with users, versus product owner, who is the interface of the team?
Interface of the team. And I didn't really understand that part. Initiate.
They have one external stakeholder that believes she is the product owner, but then the team already have a product owner. How can we help differentiate the two roles of business unit stakeholder and then the one who's in direct touch with the interface of the team?
So it could be, of course, then defining the process, how you work and what different responsibilities you have, and mapping those different areas and responsibilities and doing that together. And maybe sometimes you have to do things together and finding those overlapping areas, and then what your expectations on each other are, and how you can together in different roles then help the team to be successful and help the organization to prioritize what's most valuable. A lot of times that's part of a bigger thing happening in the organization. So it might look different in different organizations. But the findings of that you as a product owner can make the decisions that you need to make together with your team. So make that clear. What are your responsibilities and what are your mandate, and how can you collaborate with this stakeholder? I think that's good. And a lot of times in traditional organizations or in any organization, you already might have people having that role as product owner, which might mean something different than what we mean if we talk about this type of way of working in a product organization. So it might be a conflict in words. So you could also then rename your role to something else. Sometimes agile product owners is something used sometimes just to differentiate. And then what are the different things that we are doing?
Yeah. Thank you. And she also wants to know if you can clarify what you mean by product cost from when you talked about it before.
So as you see on this value wall here, we have the dots. That's a way to visualize our investments. So if we are looking to invest in one product, one area, we usually have some kind of a budget for that. And we want to, as a product owner, our responsibility is to use it in the best way possible so that the team can deliver what's most valuable and find out continuously what's going to help us maximize and get ROI on that. So you have a budget for your product and you have the people. So you might have one team working for you with that product, or you might have 3 teams if it's a big investment. But most times you want to separate so that the strategic part of your priorities is separated from the cost of the team. So they are not connected. Otherwise, it's very difficult and you might start to sub-optimize who is doing what. So I don't know if that was an answer.
We have some more questions. Let's see if we can go through them all. We have one from Håkan. Prioritizing the team's work is an important thing for a product owner to do. So what is the most important thing to prioritize in order to succeed as a product owner?
I would say doing the discovery work together with the team and finding good ways of involving them and meeting with the customer. The more you can do that, the better it is, because then you will not do things that are not valuable for the customers in a better way.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, at least, that's usually what I find most valuable. Not doing the things that are not going to bring value to anyone.
Then we have one from Cindy here again. How do you know the persona created is correct versus our thinking of how that demographic prefers or wants?
So as I showed you, that was a prototype of a persona, which then it's based on our assumptions. And sometimes we have pretty good idea because we worked within that field with the customer, or we could maybe engage with someone who really knows the customer, like customer service, for instance, and create those personas together. Or we could go out and actually meet with our potential customers, or maybe who actually are our real customers, to understand their needs and do user interviews. So a lot of times you start mapping your different types of customers, and then if you need to, you dig into it a bit more deeply. And if there's a big risk of actually having the wrong understanding, then you definitely should meet with and do user interviews and understand your customers a bit more before doing the personas. But otherwise, you could do prototypes of personas and then continuously evaluate your assumptions. So it depends a little bit, but meet with the customer. That's one first safe step.
And do we have time for like 2 more questions or something? What's the time?
Yeah, it's 1 minute left.
Yeah, we'll take one here. What do you think? Is it possible to be a product owner in a sales department in an enterprise organization with large account customers, or are the PO role not more for an inside department rather than a customer focused like sales?
No. Oh, yes, it has lots to do with sales, of course. So definitely. So if you're like I showed you the different the different circles there, the product owner is responsible for what's actually sellable to the customer, and then people working with usability can understand and learn about and understand the customer's needs. So you need to work together. And then people who work with technology, if you're building something based on technology, software, or something product, you need to collaborate with them as well. So you need to find a way to work as a cross-functional team to define what's actually going to be sellable, valuable, and feasible. So you could definitely have a product ownership role.
Thank you. And then the last question here is from Mikkel. He wonders if you have any failure examples and experience from that you can share.
From what? From sales departments running product ownership?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. There are, of course, many times that I have failed as well, and probably many others. But having too many assumptions usually is a failure if you don't validate if they are risky. And many times if you do a kind of waterfall planning and work with a team thinking you have a scrum team and they are agile, but you still have a waterfall plan, you have that plan. I've seen that happen with also like 150 people, where the plan is just split up into different parts, and you continuously just push that plan into those teams. Then 150 people might not deliver anything of value for a full year. So that could be a big failure happening. So having this dynamic and flexible planning and getting feedback in and slicing is crucial, especially if you have many people working with it. Then it's a big risk if you're not doing that, I would say.
Yeah.
I think time's up.
Yeah, time's up. Thank you, Mia. And talk that was a part of Agile Reflect going to be up on our YouTube channel shortly. It's Dandy People Consultants, and then it will also be up on the Agile20Reflect YouTube. And we also have a lot of resources and things at our website, dandypeople.com. Check out, and a lot of your nice posters.
Exactly. So the poster that we talked about now, you can download for free and use it if you want, and also a lot of other posters around user experience, business agility, maybe other things that you find valuable if you're working in this field. So thanks a lot, everyone joining. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to maybe knowing and learning more about your experiences.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for today.
We have someone who raised their hand. Could we help Mikael? Maybe he wants to say something. Is that something you can do?
I can't see that he raised his hand, so...
No, I don't really see it here either. Weird.
Who was it?
It was Marcus something. I'm sorry. I don't seem to manage to... It should be a hand raised somewhere and that I can do something about, but I can't find it. So sorry for that. But you can reach out anytime to me on LinkedIn or via email or anything, or Patrick, if you have any more things that you would like to discuss. So thank you so much for joining.